So I was able to borrow back a Klee sequencer that I built for somebody. I thought it would be really fun to hook this up with the MAD version 2 of the Monotribe, because this has multiple CV outputs you can use and various combinations of ways you can connect it. So for those not familiar with the Klee, I'll just give the basic premise. A normal sequencer, for example the one on the Monotribe here, has 8 or 16 steps or whatever that are individually active, one after the next, and then the pattern repeats, of course. But there's always just one step active at a time. If you can think of it as the series of lights that are coming on in a sequencer. And you can also think of it as a series of bits. If you think of this as 8 bits, there's 1 bit. If you think of 0 as off and 1 as being on, 1 bit enters, and it's shifted down one after the next, like a shift register coming down 1 bit active at a time. Well, the main way that the Klee differs from those sequencers is that you can inject more bits being on at the same time. So, for example, you have the first bit and it's on going down the sequence, and you can inject the second bit so there 2 are traveling down, or a third bit or a fourth bit so there are 4 traveling down. And what happens is that the Klee combines whatever voltage is set at the various bits, and that's the output. So if you have 1 volt set on bit 1, 1 volt set on bit 3, and 1 volt set on bit 5, and all 3 happen to be active at the same time, you got 3 volts coming out. You got 1, 2, plus 3. So here we got the 1 bit traveling around. I'm using the combined CV A plus B. That means the this is pattern A, this is pattern B, and I'm running them together as 16 right now. The combined CV out I've got coming in and controlling the CV on VCO2. VCO1 is just running the CV pattern that's stored in the sequencer here. If I turn off, that's VCO1. That's VCO2. Now, for example, I could split the pattern into 2. Now it's just repeating that. I don't have any bits active in the second pattern, but if I inverted, now we have 2 bits active. Now I've loaded a different pattern of 2 bits. I've got the combined CV A plus B also going to the VCF. So as we add more notes, the filter is going to get brighter. It's a different pattern of 3. Start adding some glide to the output. A different pattern of 4. Add a pattern of 5. the VCA being controlled by CVA out here. We can start to attenuate the drums with it too. So what I've done is taken a kind of breakout cable from sync in. You can see the kind of mess here with the wires, but basically what I'm doing is I've got a little breakout cable so that I can get the CV and gate controls for the VCO1 coming in. So I've got those broken out and hooked up to cables here. So now we get into a really interesting situation with the Klee where we're going to run the sequencer as two simultaneous 8-bit sequencers. So sequence 1 to 8 is CVA out, and A is going to VCO1 on the Monotribe. So if I start to put voltages into that, you're going to hear VCO1. I've got the gate output. What you can do with the different buses and the gates on the Klee is very complex. I'm not going to really get into that here, but basically I'm taking the gate out to the gate input, so I'm not going to be running the sequencer at all right now. So I've got CVA, first sequencer, sequencer A going to VCO1. I've got sequencer B going to CV in for VCO2. So if I start to throw in some voltage now, you're going to that's the sequencer. It's frozen right now, but that's VCO1 you're hearing, basically. That's VCO1, and then I'm adding sub-os to it. That's VCO2 at the moment. If I run this, basically there's nothing in VCO2 at the moment. It's all VCO1. VCO2 is just playing a solid tone. I'll throw an invert. Try to add in some 2. That's going to VCO2. Now, well, that just demonstrates some of the fun you can have when you have another device that puts out 2 or 3 separate sets of control voltages so that you can really make use of these control voltage inputs on the Monotribe without having to use MIDI.